Hi, I'm back, and I'm here again to discuss. Just a recap, we discussed about global variables and common components, and lastly, we'll be discussing. But a bit of before we discuss the final routes, I'll be discussing about the difference of the common components and the components. So let me just again minimize all of these. We know that we don't need this. We have the common components and of course the version. So we're done discussing the global variables and common components. And we know that common components are the models. Just for example, the contact model, the mobile contact agent model. We have the login model, and of course um, other components that are not available or that are not implemented on the basis of the page. That's why we categorize this, or maybe the developers categorize this as common components. And before anything else, let me just discuss um, a bit of common components and the components inside the routes. So components are basically the sections, like for example, just to give you a glimpse of what components are in our pages. We have the opening video component. We have the about components, the property slider components or component, the testimonial component, and other part of this. These are technically in the JSON called um, components, or on the front end, these are the sections, community sections or section. We have the testimonial section, the opening video section. So components are basically the sections equivalent in on the front end. So let me just dive in. Components, common components, and we have the components. So the only difference is this: common components are for the models, and components are used inside the page. In this case, we have inside the path, or this is the page. We have different components, and we can now see how components are arranged. We have these are basically uh, the helmet component is the title of the page. So you can just put the title of the page. By default, it will not display since we don't have any title added in it. And we have the data provider. These are basically will grab the data, like the featured properties, the sale property and sold properties, and all other dynamic pages or dynamic contents. Um, and this is the component, the data provider. This is another component. And we can start to see now what are the basic part of the components. We have, just like the common components, let me just um, minimize some of these items, and we can, let me just make it a little bit smaller. So a component has name, and we also have settings. That's common component, and the same is true with the components. We have the name and the settings. So two parts of the components, we have the name and setting, and the same is true with the components inside the pages. So common components are used as a summary. Common components are used in the global context, like global model. We have the contact overlay, we have the side menu items, the login overlay, and other models, other components related to models or overlays. while components are used inside the page. Like this, in this case, we have the home page, and if we are going to dive in deeper, this is the about page. We have the components. Yeah, we have the components. Of course, the name of the components and the settings. So hopefully this will allow you to kind of differentiate the common components and components. Let me know if you have any further question about this topic. Thank you.